Hello there, I'm Preetha Manivanan and you're tuning in to Nightline, your top stories. Health Ministry announces only 7 new COVID-19 cases, Malaysia's lowest since March. Prime Minister's bold and timely responses against COVID-19 help place Malaysia on path to recovery. The Nightline team would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah in conjunction with His Majesty's birthday celebration on Monday. We pray that Al-Sultan Abdullah and the Raja Permaisuri Agong Tunku Aziza Amina Maimuna Iskandaria will continue to be on the throne with all the glory and greatness, as well as for their Majesties' long and healthy lives, and for them to always be in God's grace and honour. And in conjunction with his official birthday, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah expressed hope on Monday that all Malaysians of all races, religious beliefs and cultures will continue to maintain the prosperity and unity achieved so far. Al-Sultan Abdullah, in his royal decree released by the Comptroller of the Royal Household for Istana Negara, Dato' Ahmad Fadil Shamsuddin, called on all Malaysians to stand united in helping the government to succeed in economic recovery efforts for the well-being of the people and the country. The King also urged the people to remain patient and disciplined and to keep up with the new normal practices, as well as to obey all directives issued by the government in an effort to contain and break the chain of COVID-19 infection. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong also commends the commitment and sacrifices by the security and frontline personnel in the fight against this outbreak. The King prays that Malaysia will continue to be protected from all kinds of threats and be blessed with lasting prosperity and unity. Malaysia has 7 new COVID-19 cases on Monday, marking the lowest number of new infections in nearly 3 months since the Movement Control Order (MCO) started in March. Health Director General Dato' Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said all 7 new cases involved Malaysians, adding that 2 of them were returnees from Egypt and India, while the others were local transmissions.
Perincian bagi 5 kes penularan dalam negara di kalangan warga negara adalah seperti berikut. 2 kes kontak rapat kepada kes positif COVID-19 iaitu kes 8,294 di Sepang, Selangor. 1 kes saringan tempatan iaitu saringan tempat kerja dari kluster depo tahanan Immigration Bukit Jalil, wilayah Persekutuan Kuala Lumpur. 1 kes saringan pra-pembedahan di Hospital Wanita dan Kanak-kanak Sabah Likas. 1 lagi kes saringan komuniti di Kota Kinabalu, Sabah.
He said 20 more patients had been discharged, which means 6,694 patients have recovered from COVID-19 in Malaysia since the outbreak began. Dr. Nur Hisham added that there are 1,518 active cases being treated at the country's health facilities. The Health Director General also announced that there were no new deaths and said that the country's death toll stands at 117. The timely response in closing borders to other countries as well as in implementing the Movement Control Order MCO are among the main factors which helped Malaysia curb the spread of COVID-19. Assuming the post of Prime Minister at the most difficult period, these were among the most crucial and commendable decisions taken by Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin in his first 100 days as the 8th Prime Minister. Tan Sri Muhyiddin's unpopular but bold decision to take the bull by the horns in handling the COVID-19 pandemic has saved the day for Malaysia. It was clear from the start that Tan Sri Muhyiddin, aged 72, had his work cut out the moment he was sworn in as Malaysia's 8th Prime Minister on March 1st, as COVID-19 cases in the country then were already showing signs of an upward swing. With the country's faith in his hands, quick solutions were needed in the midst of a delicate and challenging period that put the seasoned politician's wisdom to the test, as he was forced to take unprecedented measures guided by the advice of the Health Ministry as recommended by the World Health Organization (WHO). When the going got tough, the tough got going, and as he faced his litmus test in his first 100 days as Prime Minister, Tan Sri Muhyiddin's introduction of the MCO on March 18th to contain the pandemic was touted by many as an unpopular but courageous move. Introducing control of movement for Malaysia according to its mould, Tan Sri Muhyiddin announced the enforcement of the MCO in 4 phases until May 3rd, followed by the Conditional Movement Control Order (CMCO) from May 4th to June 9th, and the latest, the Recovery Movement Control Order (RMCO) from June 10th to August 31st. The RMCO is part of the government's exit strategy for Malaysia as the country is now entering the recovery phase of COVID-19 following a declining trend of infections, while the country's medical and public health capacity has reached a better and more convincing level. Malaysia's global collaboration to accelerate work on the development of the COVID-19 vaccine was spearheaded by the Prime Minister himself after he joined several world leaders on April 24th at the launch of the Access to COVID-19 Tools ACT Accelerator hosted by the World Health Organization (WHO) via a live teleconference where he offered Malaysia's full support for the international effort. To weather the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, on March 27th, Tan Sri Muhyiddin announced a 250 billion ringgit Prihatin economic stimulus package with the objective of protecting the people, supporting businesses and strengthening the economy. The package included a 1 billion ringgit injection for the Health Ministry to purchase equipment, hire medical experts and to provide special allowances between 400 ringgit and 600 ringgit for healthcare and medical workers, and another 200 ringgit for uniformed personnel. The Muhyiddin-led government had also launched the COVID-19 Fund on March 11th as part of the government's effort to help the people affected by the pandemic. Last Friday, the Prime Minister also announced the short-term National Economic Recovery Plan Penjana, which features 40 initiatives worth 35 billion ringgit to empower the people, propel businesses and stimulate the economy affected by COVID-19. The government will begin lifting restrictions on sporting and recreational activities from Monday as part of the Recovery Movement Control Order. Senior Minister for Security, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, said operators of sports complexes or centres must first fill in a notification form via the International Trade and Industry Ministry so that they can obtain the standard operating procedures and be monitored by the Youth and Sports Ministry.
Mesyuarat khas Menteri-Menteri mengenai pelaksanaan PKP telah bersetuju untuk membenarkan pembukaan semula sektor perniagaan yang berkaitan dengan sukan seperti gimnasium, dewan tertutup seperti dewan badminton, kompleks sukan pelbagai, pusat snooker dan pusat-pusat sukan lain bermula pada 15 hari bulan Jun 2020.
These include individual sports such as badminton and weightlifting, two-wheeled and four-wheeled motorsports, extreme sports including gliding, surfing and skydiving, as well as recreational sports including aerobics and yoga. Permission will be granted on the basis of adhering to social distancing of at least 1 to 3 meters for static activities such as weightlifting and running on treadmills, and 3 to 5 meters for dynamic activities such as practicing for football, hockey and rugby. However, for team sports including football, rugby, hockey, volleyball, as well as fighting sports like karate, taekwondo and silat, the meeting has decided they cannot be played for the time being. The organising of sports championships and competitions also remains prohibited at this stage so as to prevent mass gatherings. Water sports activities in the pool are similarly prohibited. The Youth and Sports Ministry, National Security Council and Health Ministry will discuss the matter and synchronise the SOPs in detail before making a decision. The reopening of sports and recreational activities under the RMCO is expected to apply to gymnasiums, closed halls such as badminton halls, multi-sports complexes, snooker centres and other sporting centres. At the same media conference, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob also announced that Malaysians who are working in Singapore or find themselves having to travel back and forth across the border will be allowed to do so on a regular basis as long as necessary swab tests are conducted. He, however, said this will only be implemented after negotiations between the two countries are finalised.
Kerajaan mengambil maklum bahawa sektor industri di Singapura telah memulakan operasi mereka dan mereka juga meminta kebenaran supaya pekerja mereka yang berwarga negara Malaysia yang berada di Johor Bahru untuk berulang-alik ke Singapura.
The senior minister emphasised that negotiations are still underway between both parties and this ruling can only take effect once further guidelines are released to regulate the travel of Malaysians across the border. All government services will be fully operational during the recovery MCO from June 10th to August 31st. Chief Secretary to the government, Datuk Sri Muhammad Zuki Ali, said such government services and activities will be continued with immediate effect, but would still be subject to strict health protocols. Now, he urged all development projects to be continued immediately in order to support the country's economy to get back on track. Datuk Sri Muhammad Zuki said for the project that truly needs a site visit, such activities are allowed by practicing the new normal and by minimizing the number of participants. Meetings and workshops are also allowed to be held, but will have to comply with safety procedures and health protocols that have been issued by the National Security Council and the Health Ministry. He, however, said that civil servants would still be following work-from-home practices and work rotation systems, seeing as schools have yet to fully reopen. The government has agreed to allow barber shops, beauty parlours and hair salons to raise their rates, but only for extra costs incurred in complying with the recovery MCO SOPs and not for their services or products. Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Minister Dato' Alexander Nathalegi said the new rates for haircuts should be in line with additional costs that barbers and hairdressers incur to keep themselves and their customers safe from COVID-19. Dato' Alexander, however, said it is best for these businesses to display the prices for each of their services on a board or openly to avoid unnecessary confusion. He added that the enforcement personnel from the ministry will also be deployed to these premises to carry out inspections to ensure SOPs are properly adhered to. Consumers are also urged to lodge a complaint with the ministry if any barber, hairdresser or beautician is found to be imposing unreasonable additional charges for their services. The ministry added that overcharging is an offence chargeable in court under Section 14 of the Price Control and Anti-Profiteering Act 2011. The Malaysian Barber Groups Association had initially asked to increase the fee for their services by 5 to 10 ringgit to balance the higher cost to be incurred through the use of disposable items like aprons and gloves. We're taking a short break, and when we return, recovered Malaysian doctor in the UK shares his battle against coronavirus. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now, from vivid dreams to special prayers, a Malaysian doctor based in the United Kingdom shared a story of how he was fighting for his life in intensive care due to COVID-19. An oral and maxillofacial surgeon, Dr. Tun Muzamal Wildan, 47 years old, spent almost a month at Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Birmingham. Our correspondent in the UK, Haliza Hashim, reports.
On the 5th of April, at the height of COVID-19 cases, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, infected by the virus, was admitted to a hospital in London. 190 kilometres away in Birmingham, a Malaysian frontliner, Dr. Tun Muzamal Wildan, was also rushed to an intensive care unit due to severe breathing difficulties. Dr. Tun had caught high fever and coughs in late March since he was exposed to a COVID-19 patient while working. By the time he arrived at Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Birmingham, his condition has worsened. His breathing was assisted by a mechanical ventilator, followed by tracheostomy. The invasive regime to fight COVID-19 has made him confused and very weak. He spoke about the nightmares he had during the sedation period, which lasted until after he came home.
Saya rasa lepas 2 minggu, then when they decided to wean off the sedation, saya mula sedar daripada that saya berada di dalam hospital. I think most of the time, sometimes I was confused. I didn't know what was happening. I thought they were experimenting on me. So there were times when I wanted just to remove my breathing tube, and then the doctor decided to increase my sedation back again to keep me calm. Rasa takut tu tak ada, tapi masa I was under sedation, saya dapat vivid dreams and feeling that I have passed away and seeing dying people all around me. So it wasn't really a pleasant experience when I was under coma.
The former Malay College Kuala Kangsar student came to the UK in 1990 to continue his studies and to work in hospitals. At present, Dr. Tun is also a research fellow in head and neck treatment. As of yesterday, there are more than 283,000 cases of COVID-19 in the UK, with a death toll of over 40,000. Dr. Tun has been given 3 months to recuperate before going back to work. He was touched when he learned that thousands of Malaysians were praying for his recovery.
When I was recovering and when I was still in intensive care, I received messages through the hospital by my old friends wishing me well, people that I've lost touch for a very long time. So that made me realize that there were people out there doing all these nice things, baca doa, khatam Quran for me. So that's when I realized, but I didn't think that lots of people knew about it, but it's good in a way, especially my family, when they heard that lots of people come together, baca Yasin, sembahyang hajat. So, and I think that helped in terms of my recovery as well, in terms of doa and trying to help me get better and to motivate me to recover as well.
Dr. Tun Muzamal Wildan said he is extremely lucky to survive the virus. He is recovering well and getting stronger each day. He plans to bring his wife and 2 small children to see his family in Shah Alam, Selangor at the end of this year. Haliza Hashim, TV3, Birmingham.
Now, police in Johor smashed a major trafficking syndicate following the arrest of 40 people, including 19 Indonesian nationals. State Police Chief Dato' Ayub Khan Maidin Piche said the group has been quite active along the east coast of Johor since 2014. Investigations reveal the syndicate has been smuggling in and out between 500 and 600 undocumented immigrants per month. The operation was conducted with the assistance of Bukit Aman to arrest the suspects between June 4th and 7th throughout Johor. The operation led to the arrest of 40 suspects, 21 of which are locals. Probe revealed that the syndicate would charge between 1,200 ringgit and 1,400 ringgit per head to smuggle the immigrants either in or out of Malaysia. The syndicate was well organized as those arrested were working as agents, transporters, land tekong and guardians for immigrants staying in houses. The police also seized 16 cars, a van, 8 boats and 114 mobile phones from the syndicate. Johor police will be requesting assistance from Indonesian counterparts to find the suspects there. Still to come on Nightline, New Zealand declares victory over COVID-19. Details next. You're still with us on Nightline. Now on to the foreign front. U.S. Congregational Democrats plan to unveil a sweeping package of legislation to combat police violence and racial injustice after 2 weeks of protests across the nation sparked by George Floyd's death in Minneapolis police custody. According to Congregational sources, the proposal is expected to ban police chokeholds and racial profiling, require nationwide use of body cameras, subject police to civilian review boards and abolish the legal doctrine known as qualified immunity, which protects police from civil litigation. The bill would allow victims of misconduct and their families to seek financial damages against police by limiting the legal doctrine known as qualified immunity. It would also make lynching a federal hate crime. Democrats hope to bring the legislation to the floor of the House of Representatives before the end of June. New Zealand's government lifted all COVID-19 restrictions almost immediately, except stringent border controls. Its Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced on Monday that the nation's health officials declared a country virus-free after having no remaining active cases.
Today, there are no active cases in New Zealand. We have tested almost 40,000 people for COVID-19 in the past 17 days and none have tested positive. We have had no one in hospital for COVID-19 for 12 days. It's been 40 days since the last case of community transmission, 22 days since that person finished their self-isolation. Borders remain our first line of defence.
Ardern drew global headlines and praise from the World Health Organization for her government's approach to the virus, with a strict and cautious approach that appears to have paid off. On March 25th, she locked down the country for 4 weeks, requiring that most New Zealanders remained at home most of the time before gradually easing restrictions. From midnight Monday, the Prime Minister said New Zealanders would live in a country where life feels normal, and even social distancing rules and limits on gathering sizes would be jettisoned, allowing any part of the economy still stalled to reopen. Singapore reported 386 new coronavirus cases as of noon Monday, including 2 infections of the community. One community case is a Singaporean, while the other is a work pass holder. The rest of the new cases are work permit holders residing in dormitories. Singapore's tally of COVID-19 infections now stands at 38,296. Pakistan recorded more than 100,000 coronavirus infections, prompting authorities to begin strict enforcement of government safety measures. Local officials said safety protocols are not being followed, particularly since just before the Aidilfitri holidays. The South Asian nation to date registered 2,067 deaths and 103,671 infections of the novel coronavirus. Most people arriving in the United Kingdom from abroad starting Monday will have to self-isolate for 2 weeks under a new coronavirus restriction that has been roundly condemned by the ailing aviation sector. The measure, which applies to both residents and visitors, with some exceptions, aims to prevent a second wave of contagion from abroad. To enter the UK by plane, train, road or sea, travellers must provide details of their journey and the address where they will self-isolate. Britain's official death toll of 40,542 trails only that of the United States. Now let's take a look at the highlights of Malaysia's main newspapers for Tuesday, June 9th. The New Straits Times underlines the resumption of some sports and recreational activities starting June 15th under the Recovery MCO. Malaysia's best-selling Malay newspaper, Harian Metro, features a story of a disabled millionaire who did not let his shortcomings stop him from becoming successful. Berita Harian, meanwhile, focuses on the Finance Minister's assurance that Malaysia still has the financial capability to stimulate the economy. And a report on KTMB's proposed merger with RAC to help sustain operation takes the front page of the Malaysian Reserve. Do get your copies today or subscribe to the e-paper. Immersive arts pioneers Culture Spaces unveil Bassin des Lumières, the largest digital arts centre in the world. Housed in an abandoned Bordeaux submarine base in France, the exhibition space was chosen not only for its vast size, but for the pools of water in which the projections can be reflected. Visuals of the art centre wraps up Nightline. I'm Preetha Manivanan. Thanks for watching.